I'm Jason, the world is yours, and today we have a story about Dillon Danis says he has to pay Bellator a hefty fee to be allowed to box KSI. Dillon Danis has revealed he has to pay Bellator in order to box KSI. Danis, of course, is under contract with Bellator despite not even fighting in Bellator since 2019 due to knee injuries. He will make his return to in-ring competition on January 14th, 2023 in the main event of Mixed Fix. It's a double O. I'm gonna just say 004 against KSI in the event being streamed on The Zone. This is a boxing event. Although Bellator has allowed Danis to take this fight, he says he has to pay Bellator given The Zone is a competitor of Showtime, which broadcasts Bellator's fights. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about how I had to do that because Showtime and The Zone are competitors, so I had, or he says rivals, but I didn't know they were rivals. I know they're competitors. So I had to pay a hefty fee. It's a lot of money. When I'm paying Coker to let me fight is more than probably every UFC fighter makes. Of course, he's gonna take a shot at the UFC. This is so ridiculous. This. Oh my goodness. Hold on, let me just read that one more time. I know people hate Dillon Danis, but to me, this statement is just funny because it's clearly not true, right? Like it just doesn't even make sense. But he's exaggerating, but it's funny. So I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about how I had to do that because Showtime and The Zone are rivals. So I had to pay a hefty fee. It's a lot of money. What I'm paying Coker, the president of Bellator, to let me fight is more than probably every UFC fighter makes. Danis told the MMA Hour not to let me out, but to fight. I'm still with them. It would be different if I was with Showtime because Showtime, they have a deal with them. According to Danis, he believes Scott Coker was mad at the fact that his combat fight is in boxing and not in MMA in Bellator. Yet Danis is planning to have an active 2023 and fight a few times in Bellator. Coker wants me to come back to MMA. His star, obviously. There's no one in Bellator that's going to bring that kind of noise. Who brings that much hype? I just think he's mad. Speaking about Scott Coker, Danis said the big comeback should have been in MMA, which I agree, but why not just beat up a YouTuber for a effing ton of money? Danis is 2-0. Okay, we don't even have to get into that. Okay, yeah, okay. So I mean, before, when I was just reading the headline, I wanted to read this story. I didn't see the interview with the MMA Hour. I saw a piece of it. I just saw a piece of it on Twitter with Ariel Hawani interviewing Dillon Danis. I don't know if this is the area this is where that quote came from, but I'm assuming that's that interview where Danis had his sunglasses on. It's a pretty funny interview, but I would just say this: I'm not a Dillon Danis hater. I'm not. I'm not a hater of almost any MMA fighter. I'm a fan of when they talk crazy. I am a fan when they promote themselves. I am a fan when they accept heat. That's almost all MMA fighters. I come up from boxing, and when people would talk crazy to promote fights, like they would go way left. Right, so I'm not a hater of Dillon Danis. I know a lot of people don't like his style, but personally, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, I support MMA fighters who go out there and promote themselves, whatever that means, right? Like I said, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, I definitely support MMA fighters who promote themselves, whatever that means. But before, when I just read the headline, I wanted to read this story because I was just like, okay, hold on, what's this about? Because Bellator, from what we know, they allow their fighters to fight in other leagues. We've seen Chris Cyborg, their women's featherweight champion. She just made her boxing debut. I didn't hear anything about her having to pay Bellator. Who else? MVP Michael Venom Page. He fought in bare knuckle fighting, right? He fought in the BKFC, a bare knuckle fighting championship. He fought in that. He took some damage. He fought against who did he fight against? Who did he fight against? He fought against Mike Platinum Perry. Was that? I believe that's who MVP fought in the BKFC, and he took some damage in that fight. Like, it's bare knuckle fighting. He took some damage, but I didn't hear anything about him having to pay Bellator. But I'm not gonna call cap on this story. It's just, I was just a little bit surprised because, like I said, Bellator has allowed their fighters to compete in other areas. I believe Jake Hager, I don't know if he's a current Bellator fighter, but he's in AEW, right? So Bellator is definitely open, as some people would say, open for business. But I've never heard them demanding money from any of the fighters. I didn't hear anything about Chris Cyborg having to pay them money to make her boxing debut. I didn't hear anything about MVP Michael Venom Page to have to pay Bellator for him to compete in the bare knuckle fighting league. I don't know if they're partners with Showtime. So the more I think about it, it seems I don't know. That's what I'm gonna say about this story. I would just say this: I would be surprised, right? Because like I said, Bellator seems very open for business, and I've never heard any of their fighters say anything. Just three examples in three different sports: boxing, wrestling, and bare knuckle fighting. Right? Chris Cyborg, she went to boxing. She didn't say anything about paying Bellator. Jake Hager, he's in AEW. That's on TBS, right? They're not partners. Is TBS partners with Showtime? I didn't know anything about that, right? So maybe Jake Hager isn't still a part of Bellator or something. But I know when he came over to AEW, he was promoted as an MMA fighter, right? Type of a guy. So I didn't hear anything about that. And Michael Venom Page, Showtime. I don't believe Showtime broadcasts anything with the bare knuckle fighting league, right? So I would imagine they would demand something if this is true. So, like I said, this is a story we just kind of look into a little bit more, because if this is true, maybe Showtime and DAZN really are rivals and things like that. But aren't they gonna make this Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia fight? Like, isn't that DAZN and Showtime, or is it not Showtime and DAZN? Who knows? There's a lot going on in this story, but let me know your opinion of this story. Do you, okay, there's so many questions to ask. Do you believe Dillon Danis that he literally have to pay a, quote, hefty fee that also is, quote, probably it is more than probably every UFC fighter makes? Do you believe that, or do you think cap on this story? Dillon Danis is completely capping. Cyborg, she went to boxing. Jake Hager, he went to AEW and still under contract with Bellator. MVP went to the bare knuckle fighting championship league, whatever that's called, and he's still under contract, and none of them said anything about paying a hefty fee. I'm Jason. The world is yours. Today we had a story about MMA fighter / boxer Dillon Danis says he had to pay Bellator a, quote, hefty fee to be allowed to box KSI. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.